Hello, this is Reb Yoseph Schreiber coming to you from the land of Israel. I'd like to talk to you about this week's Parsha TeTsaveh. The Parsha opens with a commandment. This is the text. Va'ata TeTsaveh es b'nei Yisrael, and you will command the children of Israel, vayikhu elecha shemen zayit, and they will take to you olive oil, zach, pure or refined, ktit, crushed or mashed, lama'or, for light, illumination, laha'alot, near tamid, to raise up the candle, the permanent candle. Okay. What this is basically talking about is lighting the menorah in the temple for ceremonial purposes. There's various types of furnishing in the temple. One of them breaks down to be effectively a lamp, and the idea of the lamp is that it's a symbol of wisdom and learning. Today we use an electric light. Last 120 years. Before that, if you really wanted to learn, you had to burn the midnight oil, literally. This is what it's talking about. The most common types of candles today are paraffin candles. At one time, what you would do is you would put oil in a little cup, and you'd get a wick, say, that floats, and you'd ignite it, and that would provide light for you. Today, candles are basically used for ceremonial purposes or because they are beautiful. In the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, they used them for light. As a result of that, you have the metaphor of the lamp being a symbol of learning, especially limudei kodesh. The pasuk can be understood metaphorically as well, and homiletically as how we really should learn. Okay? And one can go so far as to say almost that this is the essential message of the Chumash. The Chumash really is not greatly concerned about teaching us how to manufacture common items. Okay? So it starts with Ata TeTsaveh, you will command them. And the commentaries point out that this is specifying that Moshe Rabbeinu himself must command the children of Israel, and that he can't delegate this purpose to not somebody else. The idea is that when someone is going to learn something, they have to learn it by themselves. They can't say this person will learn it for me. It's a personal endeavor. And when you get down to shemen zayit, there are various sources for oil. Sunflower seed oil, oil from nuts, especially peanuts, or tahina, sesame seeds, are all sources of oil. However, the best source of oil, which gives the best light, is considered to give the best light, is olive oil. So as a result, what it's saying is that when you're going to learn something, you learn it from basically the best sources. Use the best materials you have around. It continues that it should be zach, that you have to purify your learning, and katit, and crushed. This is giving two parameters to how we're supposed to learn something. On one hand, you have to isolate the essential ideas. That's the idea of purifying it. You get rid of all of the extraneous details. And then you say, just what exactly is this book saying to me? What is the fundamental language, the fundamental message of the teacher to keep the wine and to throw out the dregs, as opposed to collecting the garbage and throwing out the wine. That's the basic idea of refining. When it talks about katit, that comes to be on the other side of it. What Rashi explains is that you don't go so far as to mill the grapes to get the oil out. So basically, when you're making olive oil, what you do is you crush the grapes, and the liquid that comes out tends to be the oil. You have probably, I've never done it myself, but it's probably like something like peanut butter or milk, where the oil floats to the top, and then you just simply extract that layer, and that's the oil that you use to burn. If you take the olives, including the seeds, and you pulverize them, and then say even boil them, you will be able to extract additional oil from them after you have mashed them. So you take the oil off that you've mashed, and now you have the pits and the pulp, and you really pulverize that, and you get a little bit more oil out of it. The problem is that the oil that comes out of it is of an inferior grade. You can still use it, but it's not as good. The idea is that if you're learning something, you can only take the text so far. At some point, you are trying to see things in the text that really are not there. It's at that point you start getting into sophistry and Pilpul and Purim Torah. That, you can say, yeah, it says this kind of, but it really doesn't. That's the idea of you don't actually go so far as to mill the oil, the grapes, to get anything out of it. It continues that you should raise up the oil. Generally, the word lahalot is an unusual term in this context. If you're talking about burning things, the typical term is lahadlik, to kindle, to light. The idea of this is when you're lighting an oil candle, it doesn't ignite immediately. You basically have to hold the fire to the wick for a few moments, and then the wick will ignite, and then the flame will ascend by itself. That's the halot, that it should ascend. The idea is that when learning something, it shouldn't just be a cursory learning. What it means is that you should understand the material probably sufficient for you to explain it to somebody else and talk intelligently about it. That the fire of knowledge has taken wick in your own mind. It's become part of you, as opposed to something that's transient and that you're going to forget it the moment you walk out of class. Okay? Then it talks about uses the term ner tamid, literally the eternal light or the eternal candle. If you go into many synagogues, they'll have a light that's burning there all the time. It's in fact a commemoration of an ancient legend about a miracle, which was that the Ner Ma'aravi, the western candle of the menorah, never went out. The menorah in the temple had 7 branches, and the one furthest to the west, or nearly furthest to the west, never went out. What you would have is a case where you'd have to put in oil that was sufficient to last for a number of hours, and there was a miracle in the temple. This is the legend, generally believed to be true, that the western branch that had a light in it never went out. They would always have to refuel it, but they could always, it just kept on burning. And that this was considered one of the miracles in the temple. And the commentaries talk about it, the Gemara, and they say that that when Moshe built the temple, people, the jokers would make a wisecrack. How can the divine presence rest on the work of Moshe? Kind of having a laugh at his expense. But when they saw that this candle never went out, it was a testimony to the idea that indeed the Shekhinah did rest on the work of Moshe, in that the prophecy of Moshe in the Torah were in fact true. And when you're talking about heights of knowledge, says that Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem, that the head of knowledge is fear of God, or respect of God, respect of heaven, respect of religion, morality. Okay. What you will see is when you study geology or observe the movements of the stars or the workings of the human body, at some point you see the finger of God in it. Okay, that's the aspect of the miracle. That's the aspect of learning, that when a person really studies, that this is where the presence of God becomes recognizable. And the idea of a nace, a miracle, is that's when you see the hand of God in nature and in the ordinary world, that that this candle just never goes out, is a miracle. That doesn't generally happen. So to speak, you're supposed to have an aspect of that in your learning, that people see that there is a God in heaven and he does his will on earth. They should be seen in the best of a person's knowledge, particularly their limudei kodesh, their sacred studies. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.